Yeah, got it. All right. So we're back. Me, uh, so I can actually show you all this. All right, y'all ready for the TED Talk?
Push out.
All right, let's get it. Let me know if it's too loud or too low.
Wow, hi. All right? How's it going? How are you all feeling? That shouldn't be up there yet. Okay, how are we all doing? Awful, awful. Not you. What you did was absolutely fine. I'm talking about the torturous engagement tactic that I just used. I hate that when the person, I know I just did it, but when the person comes out and they start doing the thing and they ask a whole room full of people at the same time how they're doing. Because the only thing you can really say in response to that is like, ow, or whatever you just did. And that isn't an appropriate answer to how you're doing. Any other situation, you know, I could be shopping in Woolworths in 1994, and I go up to, I'd see a mate in there looking at the Furbies, and I'd be like, hey, Gordon, you know, how's it going? And Gordon just turns around and goes, ow, like that, and just howls at the strip lighting at the top like some mad, citified 90s wolf. I'm going to think, what freak? And just turn around, leave my basket of pogs there, and just walk off. But yeah, when people ask me how I'm doing, I say I'm fine generally. I think that's what everybody does. But for me, that's not a real appropriate answer either, because for me, it's a way of deflecting the question. It's like a reflex. And deflecting that question is something I've got really good at, because a lot of the time I'm not fine. In fact, I live with depression. And deflecting people away from what's really going on with me is just what I do. When you get really convincing at pretending that you're okay, people just assume you are. Much like a lot of you thought there was nothing wrong with me when I first came out here. None of my friends, family, anybody knew anything was wrong with me until maybe a year and a half ago, when I decided to tell them. I've been secretly living with dark thoughts and self-loathing for, you know, most of my adult life. And saying I'm fine and not addressing it and not letting anybody in is just a bad move, you know. And the things that have happened to me over the last year, the more I've sort of realized that it's like putting a plaster over cancer. You're not dealing with anything. Last April was the worst time for me. I was living with a feeling I can't even describe. I still can't. I'm have to now, obviously. But if I was to choose one word, it'd be something like overwhelmed. I remember lying in bed one morning and I was overwhelmed because I was trying to remember what feeling happy felt like. And I couldn't remember. And I thought there's no point in living if I can't actually remember how to be happy anymore. I'd had suicidal thoughts before, as everyone who suffers from depression surely does. But always knew I'd never really go through it because of the pain and, you know, everything that would cause for people that were close to me. Is, you know, what a great deterrent that is. I just couldn't do that. But that morning when I lay in bed, depression had completely taken over my thoughts. It manipulated and it lied its way into making me think that ending my own life wasn't just best for me, but actually it would be best for everybody. Because that is what depression does. It overpowers you. It takes the wheel and it steers you away from everyone and everything you love. and it takes you down a dark tunnel. And when you're in that tunnel, it hugs you and it tells you that this is where you're supposed to belong. I called my mum that morning, but it wasn't because I needed help. I thought I was beyond help. I called her because I thought that day I was going to take my own life, and I called her to hear her voice one last time. Not only does my mum love me, I think, she knows me better than anyone, and also she's a mental health professional. And I think by the tone of my voice, the kind of things that I was saying, she knew something really serious was up, and the love I heard in her voice, she managed to bring me back for a second, and in that second, she suggested that together we get me some help, and that's kind of all it took. I went to my GP the next day, and I did something I thought I'd never do. I told someone I didn't know what was going on inside my own head. And after a little conversation about depression, he asked me a question I couldn't believe I hadn't asked myself. He said, "Do you actually want to die, or do you just not want to feel like this anymore?" I thought, what an important distinction to make, because when you're in that fog, you can't ask yourself questions like that. My depression doesn't hit me like a sledgehammer out of nowhere. And neither does it leave like with sudden relief, like waking up from a nightmare. It creeps in and then it creeps away again. It's like taking a painkiller for a headache. You don't know the instant your headache's gone. You just realize it's been gone a while. I realized I was feeling better when I was out walking the dog one day, and realized I've walked the thing 12 miles. And I was perfectly happy doing that. And it just felt good, you know? And this sounds weird, but everything looks normal again. All the colors looked how they should be, because depression kind of lowers the saturation on everything for me, and everything just looked good. It just felt good. It was like the part of my brain that had conked out 6 months before had just spluttered back into life, and all these like excitement and motivation and appreciation of beauty, all this sort of thing had suddenly started to come back online. And I was beginning to remember what feeling happy felt like. And I put it all down to the walking. I put it, well, not all of it, but I put it down to being outside and making that first step into talking. And I had an idea. I went into town straight away and I bought a map of Great Britain, and I sat frantically circling all the parts of the country that I thought would inspire me to stay outside the whole, you know, and just to kind of keep this good feeling going. And I thought, in turn, if I document that, then I might inspire other people who've been through what I've been through to get outside as well.
I never thought as a pediatrician that I would be at all useful in a war. My name is Seema Jalani.
Once I'd circled all the bits of Great Britain that I wanted to see, I put a big line through them, and this route appeared in front of me. I'm like, yes, I'm doing that. I need to do that. That was the easy bit, obviously. The hard bit wasn't getting myself match fit, which was really hard. You should have seen me. It wasn't researching and sourcing the kit I needed. It wasn't plotting my route to the end. It was telling people what I was going to, not so much what I was going to do, but why I was going to do it, because it meant coming clean, finally. All these feelings that I've been so ashamed of for so long, all this stuff that I thought compromised who I am as a person, I had to tell them all. It was the worst thing I ever had to do, and the best thing I ever did. The response absolutely floored me, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that were going through the same kind of thing I was going through. And all of a sudden I realized that this was important. This is something I really, really have to do. The name I gave my 3,000-mile hike around Great Britain was Black Dog Walks. 6 weeks later, I stood at Brighton Pier and just started heading west. All I had on me, ironically, were the things that I needed to survive. In a week, I'd reached Bournemouth. In a month and a half, I'd reached Land's End. And at this point, it was all about promoting exercise and being outdoors as a way of managing mental health and raising money for the Mental Health Foundation. But by the time I got up to Wales, I'd been gone for so long, the thing had turned from a challenge into a lifestyle, where I found a way to live in the moment, serendipitous encounters with strangers and being immersed in nature all the time. And having the feeling like you're living completely in the moment is like gold dust to a depressive. By the time I'd made it into North Wales, climb Mount Snowdon and come back, I was getting messages from people all over the country. And I couldn't believe how open people were being about their own experiences and how much this was connecting with people. And I noticed something really, really interesting. A lot of people who got in touch with me hadn't actually told anyone else. I was the first person they were telling. And they was like, no one else could understand. And I remember having that feeling as well. Because everything in my life led me to my depression, that awful feeling. You know, the situations I've been in, the people in my life, the decisions I've made. Everything had just reached that one moment. I thought, how the hell is anyone going to understand that? And that was the thread that was running through all these conversations that I was having with people. They were like, no one's going to understand because I've been through this, and this. And I realized that's not what we should be talking about. It's the feeling itself. Because depression is huge. Like, it's the biggest, most inclusive club in the world. Like, anyone can join. It's evolving all the time. But its biggest trick is convincing everyone who's part of that club that they're the only member. Isn't that clever? And everyone thinks that their stuff is the worst and no one's ever had it as bad as me and all the guilt that goes with that and everything. But that's because we're talking about the wrong things. We start talking about the feeling itself. Then people can get on board with that. People know what that's like. And that's when things turn into a community. Last November, I experienced the true nature of community when I did this. We're involved in a BBC documentary where I and 9 other people with mental health problems decided to tell our stories to the nation and run the London Marathon together. Initially, I thought it was just going to be something about mental health and endorphins and all the things I've been trying to sum up within the walk. But as it went on, I realized that running was the backdrop and it was more the community and the achievement and all these things that running led to that were having a real positive impact on my mental health. Movement is the word my coach Sevi, who's that guy, uses instead of exercise, I think. I still don't quite know how his brain works, and that's why I love him. But movement sort of isn't just about exercise. It's about moving forward. It's about progression. It's about working on yourself physically and mentally and being there for other people. By being in the documentary, I mean, I was communicating by, doing the walk before through video blogging, but I had the kind of safety net there of talking about it talking into my phone on my own and having the luxury of being able to trim out some of the waffle, some of the stuff that I thought wasn't necessary later on before I posted it as a video blog. What Mind Over Marathon told me to do, or forced me to do even, was to put an unedited version of myself out there. And that's when I realized what a great leveler talking about your mental health openly is. Nobody's above anyone else in that conversation. I think a lot of how we present ourselves is run by ego and status. And I think a lot of that, it governs how, the things that we do and what we say. The discussion about mental health seems to suspend all that and it levels the playing field. And that's great because it's a reminder that really we're all on the same team. We all have mental health, and the more we learn about each other's, the more we learn about our own. Whether it was talking to one of the guys, my coach, Nick Knowles, Prince Harry, I don't know if I've got a picture of Prince Harry actually. Oh yeah, I totally do. It's when we announced that we were having our first child. That's libelous. That didn't happen. I didn't impregnate Prince Harry on the set of Mind Over Marathon. It's important that you know that. But I love this picture because we do look like mates and we look relaxed. And that's because I've been lucky enough to have Will photo from it in the background there. We'd had this conversation, this 15-minute, 20-minute long conversation, and I was asking him how he was doing it. He was asking me how I was doing it. It was real. We leveled it all out, and I didn't feel beneath him. Prince Harry felt softly. That stops now. That stops now. And breaking down the invisible barriers that society creates for us, barriers which make us question our place in the world, it's just good for everybody. Talking about mental health is what's best for society, because deep down everyone craves human connection. The walk's still going on. I came down from Inverness. I've walked over 2,000 miles, and after this, I'll be heading back up there to to finish it up, like to John O'Groats, and then head back to Brighton, hopefully finish sometime this winter. So I'm not going to finish on that because it's not done yet. I want to finish on something that I have achieved and something I'm proud of, because I want to show that in the face of depression, people can achieve big things, and that's a powerful thing. This is something I wrote the day after I ran the London Marathon, and a year after I lay in bed that day, about to kill myself. As I approach the marker at mile 26, my body begins to feel heavy. It feels like with every step that I take, another layer of clothing goes on. By the time me and Poppy march past the Houses of Parliament, I feel like I'm wearing a suit of armour. And then we run. The last 0.2 miles is harder than the 26 before it. It's almost impossible. 800 meters to go, 600 meters to go, 400. I feel like I'm running through water. 200. The crowd's cheer snaps me back into reality, and I realise what's happening, where I am, and what I'm about to do. I reach out and I grab Poppy's hand and do my best to hold it up, but I'm so weak I could barely lift my own up. Our feet pound the road in unison, both knees strapped up, as we finally cross the line in 5 hours and 52 minutes. And as my pace drops and I begin to walk, I feel strangely calm. I glide over to the people that have been there with me over the last 6 months. As I watch them cry and hug and congratulate, I take a step back and I make a promise to myself that whenever I feel worthless, whenever I feel alone and ashamed of the feelings I'm feeling, I'll play this moment over and over again in my head until it goes away. Because the feeling I have right now, I don't want to die. I want to live forever. Thank you.
All righty. So, what are our thoughts?
I thought that was pretty inspiring. It was a really good video. I kind of had a little bit of an experience, and watching this video, it kind of made me feel like, oh, okay, maybe this is the reason why I kind of am enjoying running now. Like, yes, I play soccer, and of course we have to run during that, but to run as the choice personally, no way, Jose, I was doing that. And now it's like, it's almost like I have a purpose a little bit, like something different, something new, something I'm interested in. And it's kind of like allow me to really appreciate being outside and being grateful for the smells, and spring is coming and summer is coming and all these things to look forward to. And when I do get a little like in that dark space, I'll just like, if I can't go outside or anything like that, I'll just think about me running out there already. Like if it's raining or something like that, I'll just think about that. But I thought that video was really great, because when all else fails, like we really do call and lean on to our mom and our dad for that support. And for him, it was like a last call, and he probably wasn't expecting his mom to say that, but as mothers do, they pick up on those cues and they hear it in your voice. And sometimes I won't call my mom when I'm going through that, just because I don't want her to ask about it. And so I realized that I kind of picked that up from her and from my brother, because if we don't hear from each other, which we talk all the time, and if we don't hear from each other, then we know that something's going on, or we know they're going through something or something like that. But that was my TED Talk. I thought that video was very, very good.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you for sharing your thoughts and experience. Does anybody else would like to share their thoughts and ideas about the video?
I think there's a lot to be said for exercise and weird randomly, today is the anniversary of my daughter's friend that committed suicide in 8th grade 3 years ago. But they had commented, his mom's a mental health professional too, that he had injuries, and then with COVID and putting everything on hold, that lack of exercise was so impactful that he'd had mental health issues for a while, but losing that outlet of the physical activity made a big difference. So I think there were a lot of fun little takeaways. I really like that. I like the TED Talk too, but I think that's something for us to remember for ourselves and for others, that finding some sort of movement, as he said, is definitely impactful, I think, for anyone that's going through depressive times.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree on that. Anybody else? All right. So I will say the TED Talk was a bit inspiring because it shows that, especially the part where he pointed out that it's one of the most inclusive clubs that you ever will join. But the trick about it is it makes you feel like you're the only one going through it. We all have our own journeys and our own destinations that we have in our life. And we sit back and realize, sometimes it takes a minute for us to sit back and realize that we're not the only ones going through it. And this kind of feels weird to say, but it feels relieving when you know that you're not going through certain things such as depression alone. Yeah, like, oh yeah, somebody has this in common with me, so I don't have to fight this battle by myself, and we can both talk about it. Um, and like the signs kind of just hit you out of nowhere because it's usually something that people cannot point out because of the fact, like, a lot of people who end up being depressed, they don't show it in public. They put that mask on and happy go lucky. Probably the people that makes the other people smile, probably the people that's always there for other people. Um, for example, I remember Robin Williams, great comedian. Also one of my favorite actors during his time, and nobody knew that he was going through depression until it hit the news that he died via suicide. Mac Miller, one of my favorite rappers. Well, I ain't gonna say favorite, but I like to listen to him. He was always happy-go-lucky guy, but was going through a lot and died of overdose. The point of me saying this is, when it comes to your friends who seem happy-go-lucky, who seems to be always there for other people, who seem to always be the life of the party, at times those are the people that we need to check up on the most, because we don't know what they're going through, because a lot of times they don't share their story because they feel like their story would be a burden for somebody else, or because they're supposed to be the strong one, they're not supposed to look weak in front of anybody else. I'm gonna tell you this: it's okay to be weak. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to realize that you're going through it. The first step to solving a problem, especially a mental disorder, is to first admit that you have the problem. But it is not okay to stay there. It is not okay to allow yourself to drown in that abyss, because the one thing about the abyss is when you stare at it for too long, it starts to look back. At some point we will realize that, everybody goes through their own problems throughout their journey, this journey that we call life. And make sure you love on the people that are around you, because the way life goes, you never know. One day they here, the next day they gone.
Mhm.
Somebody, if I remember correctly, this is an actual fact. Somebody kicks the bucket every 6 seconds, and somebody is born every 12. And especially with our jobs and everything, if you need some time off, take that time off. Because the one thing about jobs, and I've seen it myself, somebody will pass away and they already getting a replacement ready for next week. Take care of yourself. Make sure your loved ones are straight. Make sure you tell somebody you know you love them, because we don't know the day nor the hour.
Mhm.
And just be kind to people, because we don't know what they're going through. We don't know how our actions will affect that person. But enough of my TED talk. Let's
Mhm.
move on. Treatment options. We start off with psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. Who can tell us a little bit about that?
Um, on cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I know I've told y'all this before. When I work for like an employer who we have to answer calls and assess them in a way and get them to where a counselor that they need. And I remember this client I had today, and she was very agitated with me because she just wanted to like get a counselor, and this was like her fourth time calling, so she was already hot and ready to go. And I say this story because her husband had super severe depression, and she didn't feel the counselor was the right fit. So I looked up a counselor, and although the counselor did specialize in depression, she didn't have cognitive behavioral therapy on there. And how I understand cognitive behavioral therapy is that negative thought pattern with positive thought pattern, and what, doing different things how you did before, changing the mind and the behavior of the depression. And so I simply just added that into a new search for her. And we got the 10 minutes, the timer, Chris.
Got it.
Um, and a whole list of providers in her area were popping up. And I was just telling her a little bit more information about what it was, and how I feel like it could benefit her and her husband. And she just felt really grateful for it, because she felt like that wasn't what the counselor was getting for her husband. And I think that's important when it comes to cognitive behavioral therapy, because some people who maybe specialize in depression, like they have that knowledge and education of it, but may not do cognitive behavioral therapy, and both can go hand in hand with depression.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So that's my understanding of that.
Yeah, that's a great observation. That is definitely great. Does anybody else have any thoughts on CBT? No? All right. Interpersonal therapy. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Honestly, no, I'm interested to hear interpersonal therapy. I don't remember much of it, honestly.
Me neither. I'm gonna be honest with you. Um,
I
yeah,
oh sorry.
go ahead, my fault.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when I hear interpersonal therapy, I think of it as, what's going on the inside of you, specifically, personally, and working out that. So when I hear interpersonal, I feel like it's a little bit more personal, a little bit more deeper, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could work. And so we also move to the option of medication, which is antidepressants. We may know people around us who take antidepressants for any form of depression, such as MDD and like bipolar disorder. There are also Lord, if I can say the word, alternative therapies, such as exercise. mindfulness, and acupuncture. I don't understand why people want to be stabbed by needles, but hey, go ahead, go off. Combination therapy, which can be used for like a few therapy options at the same time. So, for example, somebody may recommend to may use the strategy of cognitive behavioral therapy, and may also have this person on medication depending on how severe depression is. Then there's finally the importance of individual treatment plans. So these plans can be specified for however severe the person is going through it, or they figure out with their therapist what actually works for them and what helps them cope with the mental disorder of therapy. So here are some self-care strategies. Ironically, we were talking about exercising, working out, going to get fit, you feel me? Going for that 2,000-mile walk. I know that brother legs hurt. Nutrition. Your diet is also very important, because the food that you take in can also affect your mood. Too much sugar can cause you to crash. Too much like fast food can cause you to feel sluggish and kind of be like a downer on your mood. And also sleep. It is important to get sleep. It's important to get 8 hours, at least from about 6 to 8 hours. That's what the Surgeon General says. So it is important to make sure you are getting the proper amount of rest. Stop staying up.
Not 2 hours,
Cramping
Chris?
stuff. Huh?
Not 2 hours?
He ain't even had to do me like that. Just
I
hold
had to
up.
put some levity in there. I'm sorry. I think I operate on 4 to 6, so
Hey, I promise I will get more sleep tonight. All right. So yeah, there's sleep. I like taking naps, so that's a good thing too. A nap and a snack never hurt anybody. Stress management techniques. Mindfulness. Does anybody have any thoughts and opinions on mindfulness?
I love mindfulness.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, I love in my tongue, and then you said it. I love. I
Yeah.
just recently, I just got into it, like really focusing on it. I'm not fully committed because I don't do it all the time, but mindfulness is it's a little difficult for me. Starting it off, it is difficult. But I think it's beneficial for when I am, even if it's like the start of like depression. Like I'll get it around Mother Nature time. And we have like 4 phases, all that. I won't go too into it, Chris, but ask your wife about it. She'll know. She'll know. We get all these phases before it actually happens. And I know when I'm like, oh, I have no motivation for the gym. Okay, I really need to focus on being mindful. I really need to focus on relaxing my mind and my body, because I don't want to go into a dark hole. I don't want to skip the gym. But sometimes I miss. But mindfulness is kind of my new hobby now, a little bit. That technique.
Okay, all right, cool. I don't think I need to ask my wife, because I ain't gonna lie, when it comes right now, I be
You
running.
may not want to know.
It don't even be wanting to. I be running.
I think men know. You do know, and you're like, "Ooh, I know when I'm where and
Right.
how to be it."
Exactly. Let me
You know
give
what you need to know.
Mm-hmm. Let me give you what you need, and I'm gonna be over here minding my own business.
Right. Act like you're cleaning something.
Right. All right, and so we also go into relaxation exercises. This can consist from meditation, prayer, going for a walk. This ain't exercise, but I'm gonna throw it in here anyway. Sitting in your car.
You should have put that on their PowerPoint.
Should have.
I'm gonna toss in there, wait till you have children and you're sitting in the car and they know better and they come out and they're like, "Hey," exactly. This is my time.
Ooh, Lord. Building your social support networks. It's just like I was stating earlier, making sure you have that village around you, and making sure you have good people around you to be able to talk and express yourself, because like that does matter. You feel me? It's just like when he said, he was talking to his mom, and his mom knew. Um, Around the time when I was talking to my mom, yeah, she knew, and even when I was going through it, this past summer, you feel me? My wife knew, because of the fact like I wasn't acting like myself, and I was kind of just going through it. But hey, I coasted through it, and they were there. My dad was there. Anytime I need to talk to him. So make sure you get that good circle around you, because it is important who you are friends with and who you are. Well, we can't choose family, but who you associate with. Setting realistic goals and expectations. I firmly believe in writing the vision and making it plain. So if you have goals for yourself that you want to accomplish, write it down. And take it step by step, take it day by day. And we got 1 minute left. So also seeking professional help, going to therapy, make sure you have insurance, and make sure so you can actually get cover costs on it, and make sure you utilize your time in the therapy office. Make sure you find someone who's actually very accustomed to you. When this is over, when I come back, we will talk about this question: what do you do to cope with depression? So we got less than a minute before this shuts down.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna X out and go to the other link.
yeah. It's the same one. The same one's been working, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just
All right,
leave and
good.
come back in.
Okay. All right.